Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville on this Thursday, February 21, 2019. I am your host, Dave McHugh, getting going here as we are on the final Thursday of the regular season, folks. It is down to this. You either win or you hope that the committee likes you in some way, shape, and form to keep you playing in March. It boils down to this. You got to win. And some teams, even if they lose in the end, have to win. They can't just hope they don't survive or hope to survive this week without doing something spectacular to improve their qualifications, as it were, for the NCAA Division III tournaments. I am Dave McHugh, as we mentioned, coming to you from the D3 Hoops, or coming to you thanks to D3Hoops.com for the WBCA NABC studios. If you got questions for us, you can always tweet us at D3Hoopsville. Hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, dave.mchugh at d3sports.com. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. There is a ton of games going on tonight that we will try and keep an eye on. Thanks in part to Mother Nature, once again making the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast her playground. And even, I should say, the upper Midwest had games pushed to today due to the weather. So yesterday, I think, total of 8 men's games. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. That's what it seemed like. So today we have a chock-a-block day. It actually feels like a normal Wednesday, but on a Thursday. So we will keep track of what is going on around Division III tonight the best we can, while at the same time talking about what we've titled the show Bubble Trouble. You're going to talk to a couple of teams that are either already in a position of hoping to get in thanks to the NCAA committees, or understand that they are in a situation where they might need to get the job done this weekend. We'll also talk to a coach whose season's already complete and is already focused on next season, but that's also her job. That's coming up in the WBCA Center Court. So lots to talk about tonight, lots to try and keep up with all of you, and we hope you'll take full advantage of our show, ask us questions, and whatnot. We'll do our best to reply to your questions, whether we see them on our Facebook simulcast, whether we see them on the YouTube channel, whether we see them email, on Twitter. However you get a hold of us, we will do our best to answer your questions here tonight. Let's talk a little bit about... Sorry, I got a little distracted. I thought I saved something to something, and it looks like it didn't save it to something, so I'm a little befuddled as to what's going on. Yeah, we saved it to the wrong place is what happened. The third week regional rankings are out. They are a good barometer for us to understand where teams sit in terms of either getting into the tournament or not, should they not win their conference automatic qualifier, and if they're in a chance to possibly host. Please remember that these rankings can technically change 2 more times. For example, Great Lakes men's has Marietta number 1. That data and those decisions based on the data were done before Marietta lost in the quarterfinals of the conference tournament on Tuesday. And by the way, the RAC met Tuesday, the National meets Wednesday. It doesn't matter. It's all based on games through Sunday night. Marietta, I would suspect, will not stay in the number 1 slot. There's always a chance they could, considering how many, basically, only 42 teams essentially win this week. 43, technically, 44. ACAA and the AEC will have winners, obviously. So 44 teams will be the only ones to have won this week who are playing this week. And so, sure, Marietta could stay in the number 1 spot. I suspect they will fall. But that was not reflective in the regional rankings. The RACs will get together one more time. Off the top of my head, I believe it's Sunday morning, somewhat early. Hope nobody had church plans. They will meet in the morning and go through their rankings and decide what they want their rankings to be, understanding there's at least 12 conferences who will be, and a lot of them in the South region, interestingly enough, will decide their conference championships that day. And so they will say, here's what our rankings are. Now, if so-and-so were to win, then this is our rankings. If so-and-so is to lose, here's our rankings. If so-and-so else is going to win and he wins, then here's our ranking. And they give a bunch of scenarios and send them to the National Committee. And then the National Committee takes those rankings. They run another set of results versus regionally ranked opponents data, and then they create what is ultimately the final data set. Now, the racks will choose the results versus regionally ranked opponents data will come from week 3 when they make their rankings and send them to the National Committee. The National Committee will tweak that, finish that, and tidy up week 4 and put it in a bow. Then they will rerun the results versus regionally ranked opponents data again and redo the rankings to what they have. And their results versus regionally ranked opponents data will come from week 3 and those final ones that the rack's based it on. So they actually technically end up with 2 rankings worth of VRRO data. The reason for that is that change at the end doesn't have somebody drop off the rankings and maybe a little bit of an unfair instance for a team and their data, and it's essentially it. So technically, there's 2 more rankings still ahead. We won't see those final regional rankings until the brackets are released on Monday. Speaking of which, let's talk about programming. Tonight on the air at 7 o'clock, we'll go about 2 hours, maybe a little longer. I'm hemming and hawing about an idea for later in the show. And then at Sunday, we'll be on the air at 6 p.m. Eastern. We will not only hear from some teams that maybe have already punched their tickets, as it were, to March. Maybe, depending on how things work, we may talk to some on the bubble. We will also do mock selections, both men and women, and we will intermix that. A lot of times we'll run an interview or two to help us get a little bit of work done behind the scenes and release some more rankings. We also, in a new added feature, we will hear one more time from the National Committee chairs ahead of us doing mock selections, just as a reminder of how this all works, how things have gone for them so far, and whatnot. Very quick interviews. I certainly reference you back to our Hoopsville Marathon interviews back on January 31 to hear a in-depth conversation with those committee chairs, but we're going to quickly talk to them. They will be pre-taped interviews that we will run on Sunday. And then on Monday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the men's bracket will be broadcast on NCAA.com. We'll have the broadcast as well at D3Hoops.com. 2:30 p.m. Eastern, the women's bracket will be announced in the same fashion. And in a new planning, Hoopsville will now air at 7 o'clock Eastern that evening. Now, we've normally tried to get on about 3:30 in the afternoon. To be honest, it isn't a great show because we don't get as many guests, or at least get things booked like we want. Sometimes we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants with the committee chairs. So we will now go at 7 o'clock, allow ourselves the afternoon to get some work done, get that show buttoned up, ready to go, and go on the air at 7 o'clock Eastern. And hopefully the plan is to hear also from both committee chairs plus some other teams. Did you get all that? There'll be a test at the end. Hope you all followed that. Hope it all made sense. So that's how you can follow things along here on Hoopsville. Of course, D3Hoops.com. We have the conference tournament trackers, both men and women, constantly on our front page in that headline section. You can keep track of teams that are playing still, the results in the tournament so far. When tournaments have been wrapped up or a significant team has lost, we'll indicate who we feel, constantly updated the at-large opportunities are. And obviously where the AQs are, only one automatic qualifier has been determined. That's the WashU women. We announced that obviously on Sunday as a one on Sunday to clinch that. 30th straight year, by the way, they made the NCAA tournament. Talk about a heck of a streak. But keep track of that. Men's and women's top 20 are the tournament trackers are on the front page, and will always be there, and we'll constantly keep those up to date. Again, tonight, a lot of games going on that we'll keep an eye on the best we can. So there you go. That's kind of the long and the short of it. Brennan asks on Twitter, and I'm going to move our monitor a little bit here so I can read it better. He says, who needs to win more for its tournament's resume in the CCIW semifinal game between Wheaton and North Central? I think North Central has to. But here's the thing. I actually think it's a 50-50. I think a lot of people are a lot more confident in Wheaton getting into the NCAA tournament than I am at this point. I know how regional rankings look. I'm going to call them back up just to remind me because there's 100 things going on this time of year. Wheaton is sitting in the 3 hole at 17-7 with La Crosse and North Central behind them. For that reason, I think North Central has to win it because they're obviously behind Wheaton. That being said, if Wheaton were to lose that game, they're now 17-8. I think they end up falling. North Central obviously would win and move up. And I think then Wheaton is in a very dangerous spot on whether they get in and maybe get stuck behind somebody else. I don't know if they can fall behind Stevens Point, but they might fall behind La Crosse. I think that's a 50-50. They do have more wins than La Crosse, so that might be a misread on my part. But obviously North Central wins it. I think they get ahead of Wheaton. If Wheaton wins, North Central's chances are probably dead. And I say that because I can't see them moving up from 5 with a loss to Wheaton. So really, I think whoever wins that probably does a lot to assure themselves to get in, and the other one does a lot to maybe play themselves out. That's almost a must-win for whoever wins that game. I believe that's coming up on Friday night. Friday night. The good question, Brennan. That's certainly a good one, to say the least. We'll keep track of any other questions you may have and fire our way. We've got the scroll at the bottom, obviously telling you how else you can listen. By the way, just got our chat stream running, so if you asked us any questions on Periscope, we missed them. So I apologize that now. Ryan writes in the WIAC, would La Crosse and Stevens Point if they play in the WIAC championship? In other words, who would get in? Well, Oshkosh is a lock. They're in. La Crosse will do a lot to help themselves get in. Stevens Point, I think, has to win the entire thing. I don't think Stevens Point getting to the WIAC championship will have done enough at 15-7. You got to figure they get to that game. They're what, 16-7, 16-8 if they lose it. I might be wrong on that. I realize I may be missing a game in there. I don't think that's enough. I think Stevens Point, no matter what, has to win the conference championship to get in the tournament. I don't think there's any other way they get in. La Crosse getting to the conference championship will do a lot to help them possibly secure a bid. Considering how much they were reeling here at the end of the season, that will be certainly significant. But again, that central region is just jammed. Augustana is in, Oshkosh is in, Wheaton's in a good spot, but the difference between the gap between 22-2 and 22-1, and I'm using the regional rankings again from this week, and so the data through Sunday. And then Wheaton at 17-7 and La Crosse at 15-8. That's a huge gap. And so somebody will get to the table there, but there's going to be a lot of other teams around the country going to have better resumes before the Central is even taken seriously yet again for an at-large. Whoever can be in that spot, whether it's Wheaton, La Crosse, or North Central, it's good. You don't want to be the second or third team in line there in the Central, and I think that's where things get a little hairy. Be the first team. Be that third-ranked team in the Central, and you're in good shape. Be the fourth and fifth and further, I think you're in trouble. I think you're in a lot of trouble. And that's not true across the board in every other region. In the Atlantic, I think you're in trouble at 3. I think the top 2 are probably in. In the East, I'm not all that sure at 2-3, to be honest. Plattsburgh maybe gets in. Maybe Oswego's okay. But I'm a little nervous there. In the Great Lakes, I think it goes further. I think you can get down to the 5th, 6th spot before you start to really throw up some flags. In the Mid-Atlantic, I think it's the 3 spot, roughly. Northeast, off the top of my head, I think you're looking at the 6th spot, roughly. Granted, some teams are going to go in ahead of anyway, but I think the 6th spot in the Northeast, your sweet, kind of your Mendoza line. In the South, this one's a little trickier because you have Guilford, Lynchburg, and W&L sitting in that 4, 5, 7 hole with Roanoke at the 8. Whoever survives that and gets to the championship game, I think's in, and everybody else is fending for themselves. I think the sweet spot there is around 4. And then in the West, here's the deal. Listen, Whitworth, I think, has got to get at least to the conference championship and hope and pray Pomona-Pitzer wins the automatic bid. I just don't see Whitworth jumping Pomona-Pitzer in any way, shape, and form right now otherwise. And if Whitworth wants to get into the NCAA tournament, they've got to either win the AQ or they got to hope Pomona Pitzer wins it so that Whitworth can at least get to the table. But I'd be a little nervous if I'm a fan of the Pirates. That loss to Puget Sound, along with a loss to Willamette earlier this season, are bad losses in the resume conversation. I think the Texas-Dallas loss doesn't hurt them that much. But those last two, the Willamette and Puget Sound, are bad. And here's the deal. If they don't beat Whitman again, they go 0-3 against their biggest resume builder, and that won't help them either. And so that's where I'm a little worried about Whitworth, to say the least. So let's talk about what's coming up on the show real quick to give you a sense. Not a lot of guests tonight. Tried to keep it a little bit light. Kevin Quick actually asking a question a few hours ago on the show here. We'll try and answer it in a minute. But Cameron Hill from Trinity, Texas women's basketball will come up here in a little bit. We'll talk to him about an interesting scenario. They're the top dog, and at one point in the interview, it's pre-taped because they're busy. I mentioned that they're hosting. They're not hosting. It's a predetermined host in the SCAC, though they're very nearby. Texas Lutheran, not that far away from Trinity, Texas. They are the top seed, but they're in that spot in the South region on the women's side it's a little tenuous. We talk about whether they need to win or get in and what's their mentality, and really what's been the mentality of the team. And looking back at games like St. Thomas that were good to build the resume, but also not helpful in the fact that they lost by 40-something. Dr. Kristen Corrett, the Cedar Crest women's basketball coach. She's also assistant director of athletic performance for Cedar Crest. She's appearing in our WBCA Center Court segment. We're going to talk about the challenges of keeping a team fresh in the Division III world, especially in the offseason, and a little bit of this kind of coming off the Stevens Point investigation. Remember, they did a lot of illegal practices, illegal workouts, and whatnot. We'll talk to her about her job doing that, what drives her, what brought her to Cedar Crest, by the way. Her last job was an assistant coach at Tufts. We'll talk about all of that, and we'll talk about those challenges of how do you do this work while at the same time staying within the rules of the Division III level. And then Jeff Brown from Middlebury will join us. Middlebury has once again lost in the quarterfinals, could go a couple of weeks before playing another game. But will they get in the NCAA tournament? You go back to those regional rankings on the Northeast side, and Middlebury's sitting in the 5-hole and has not gained a win and has picked up an extra loss. Are they nervous that they may not get into the tournament as good as they were playing near the end of the season? So that's all ahead here on the show. The other thing we'll do is when we come back from break, we'll also talk about the excitement that is the Division III tournament or the conference tournaments in just thrilling fashion. We'll talk about Augsburg men's basketball, how a spectacular win over St. Olaf has kept them alive in the conference tournament. But more importantly, we'll talk about the guy who hit that game winner, why he also knows all about the team's dirty laundry. That's all ahead here on the show. Again, you can ask us questions, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or using the hashtag Hoopsville. Brendan asks again, and is Loras in no matter what happens the rest of the conference tournament, or do you think they need to win tonight versus Dubuque? I think they need to win tonight against Dubuque. Listen, they're not in horrible shape sitting in the 4 spot, but again, a loss could put them behind Pomona Pitzer. If Pomona Pitzer doesn't win the conference championship, they also will have gone 0-3 against Dubuque, which will not help their conversation and resume here. What's keeping them as high as they are right now is the fact they've beaten Nebraska Wesleyan 1 and beaten Augustana 1 in regional rankings. That's helping them. But going 0-3 against Dubuque, who's not even ranked, adding another loss to what will now become a 6-loss team, 18-6, risks getting stuck behind Pomona Pitzer. So they got to beat Dubuque. I think they beat Dubuque, they're in the tournament. But if they don't beat Dubuque, Loras could have played themselves out after having 3 of the more spectacular victories this season. Not only did they beat Nebraska Wesleyan, obviously, a few weeks ago, they beat Augustana, as we mentioned. They also beat the D2 Augustana, who is just as good as Augustana D3. So they had a great season, but their losses are hurting them. And I think they need to get past Dubuque tonight, to say the least. So that's how you can ask us questions on Twitter. You can also email us, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. That's information all screened at the bottom. We got an email earlier talking about the SCIAC Women's Championships. And the winner of Saturday's game will their first tournament game be held? To be honest with you, that's a great question. I'm not sure. The advantage to the SCIAC team is we can put them anywhere. You're going to have a SCIAC team and a Northwest Conference team. I don't know necessarily if the Northwest Conference gets 2 teams in. George Fox is in pretty good shape. Maybe if they lose to Whitman in the conference championship, you get 2 teams in. That might dictate that you got to put some teams up in the Northwest and play at George Fox. The easy answer, as it has been for years, is send the SCIAC team up there. However, let's say George Fox is the only one out of there. You now have to fly both teams, essentially. Well, now you can put them anywhere. You can put anywhere you need to fill in a pod, whether that's Texas, the central part of the country, Great Lakes. I dare say you could fly them all the way to the East Coast somewhere. I don't love the idea of all the way coast to coast just for time reasons. But the SCIAC team can really go anywhere. And I think it's going to depend on what happens in the Northwest. That was an email question. We'll probably have to email that individual back. I'm not sure if they're listening to us on the phone, Janet, but thanks for the question nonetheless. So that's how you get a hold of us. There's also the chat rooms on YouTube and Facebook, which people have used already, and we'll try and get you those questions answered. When we come back, we will check the scoreboards. We will talk about Augsburg's great win and why, again, their best player knows all about the team's dirty laundry, and much more. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Back with more Hoopsville when we get back.
Big shots. Big dunks. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum Arena in Fort Wayne.
With his 3rd triple.
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else, and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA. We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else, and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA. We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Welcome back to Hoopsville here, everybody, on this Thursday evening, January 21st. A reminder, we will be on the air Sunday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern for a monster show. We will go through tournament selections, who we believe the at-large teams will be. We'll start with men and then do women. We'll have our all-star crew on hand to do that. Looking forward to it and looking forward to having some fun with it. We will also hear possibly from some coaches and teams who have punched their tickets in, maybe are sitting on the bubble. And, of course, we'll also talk to committee chairs, at least is our plan, quickly in the pre-taped interviews, reminding everybody how this process works and what they've been working on so far this year. It is a pre-taped interview on Sunday, as they will be a little too busy to join us live. We're checking scores and around Division III on the men's and women's side of things. A ton of games, thanks to Mother Nature here this evening. Quick score update. I see WPI has got an early lead on number 8, MIT, 16-10. It's about halfway through the first half. Capitals up on Baldwin Wallace. They've doubled them up about 6:50 left to go there in the first half. Nichols trails Western New England currently here, about 7:47 in the first half, 31-23. Lots of other games to keep an eye on in around the country. We'll do our best to try and keep an eye on what upsets may be happening. Scranton's got a 10-point lead with 4 minutes left to go in the second quarter in women's basketball. St. Thomas is having an easy time with Gustavus Adolphus. We have our first final. By the way, St. Thomas' score was 60-33 with 2 minutes left in the game. St. Joseph's of Maine defeated Suffolk 84-51, so they move on in their conference tournament. Another one, Texas-Dallas over McMurray in women's basketball, 80-64. So that one been buttoned up. Hardin-Simmons also got past University of the Ozarks, 67-49. So some games already done and dusted, and we'll keep an eye on those throughout the show. Part of the excitement of this week is the conference tournaments, obviously, is the buzzer beaters and the last-second shots. One of the things that was pretty spectacular to watch was the Augsburg men. If you didn't see this shot, listen, there's times when you know what's going to happen and you just know this is how it's going to play out. I've never been in a situation, to be honest, where it was so darn obvious and it still worked so darn well. Augsburg, who's having a darn good season, 18-8 now. They were 17-8 coming into this game. Has a heck of a shooter, by the way. Excuse me. Cold's still kind of affecting me. In Booker Copeland. Booker was given the ball with about 20 seconds left, tied with St. Olaf, 64-64, and this is how it all played out.
Mulligan, there's the handoff, and now we wait. And it's going to be Beck, who's been the man on Copeland all night to try to hold him off. 12 seconds. 10 seconds and 9. We'll see when Booker makes the move. Down to 6, down to 5, 4, 3. Here comes the shot for the win. Yes!
At the buzzer, and a spectacular shot. See it again from the low angle. Even when you know it's coming, double team coming over, hits the shot, gets mobbed by his team. St. Olaf takes the loss, unfortunately. An outstanding effort, to say the least. And after the game, you're going to see the video of it. Copeland talked about the tournament, the conference, and the game winner.
These are two games where, Saturday was kind of odd. You were short in the lineup. You didn't have Matt Carrick back here today against a really good St. Olaf team that played you really well on Saturday. What was different about today's game for you guys than Saturday, aside from the personnel?
Honestly, just intensity. Focus and intensity the whole way through. We stuck to the game plan and, did the things we wanted to. They hit a lot of shots. We deviated from it a little bit, but for the most part, we were able to get stops and, score.
First half, you guys were really slick offensively. You put up 41 points. Shots are a little tougher to come by in the second half. Game was a lot more physical, it seemed like.
Yeah, you could tell I'm bleeding everywhere, man. But that's classic MyEck, playoff basketball. It's a grind. It's always tough, low scoring, and, we just came out on top.
Finally, that last play, when you waited for 20 seconds, you're staring down a guy who's been defending you all night. Was the plan to take that shot all along, or was it to see what was in front of you?
Yep, I was thinking pull-up. You know, they were collapsing, so it made it real tough to, get to the rim. The pull-up was there for most of the night. I was missing a lot of them, but that was the plan. Don't give them a chance, take the final shot, and hope it goes in.
I want to thank Don Stoner at Augsburg for providing that video for us to see such a great finish there for Augsburg. As our good friend Justin Sweeney says, somewhere Devin George is proud. Yeah, Devin George, remember, an Augsburg grad, played 11 years in the NCAA, or in the NBA, winning 3 world championships. Copeland's got a heck of a trigger and a tremendous win to push them on to the rest of the tournament, or the conference tournament, obviously. They are playing St. Thomas tonight. That game is scheduled for a 9 o'clock Eastern tip, so they'll probably tip after we've gone off the air. But speaking of Copeland, he's got an interesting story. You see, the man is, how do you say, he's got a job, as everybody does. And his job on campus, well, as David McHugh from WCCO CBS 4 in Minnesota tells us, it's all about knowing his team's, so you say, dirty laundry?
Watch Booker Copeland play, you quickly realize this guy's different. The junior from Shakopee does it all. Scoring, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. In fact, he's leading the conference in just about all those categories. 3rd in the nation in scoring, and a likely All-American. But it's after the game ends where Copeland's versatility really shines. He even washes the uniforms.
Yeah, I'm doing the dirty work. Yeah. We got this new one now, so.
Copeland's student job on campus is in the athletic laundry and uniform storage area for Augsburg's men's sports teams.
Helped get some extra money, try and pay for school a little bit.
Keep in mind, in Division III, there's no scholarships.
I messed up a few times the first. My mom might be upset about that, but, jerseys are, sometimes difficult, especially maroon and white, try not to get it pink.
Funny thing, he'd never done his own laundry before.
My mom did all my laundry, I will admit. Yeah. And she actually laughed when I told her, I'm going to be doing the laundry. She said, oh, for the first time ever, huh?
He takes a lot of pride in his work.
Friday nights.
After all, the uniform is the symbol of the team.
If you look good, you play good, right?
When he's wearing his uniform, he's one of the best in the country.
I like to work on everything, make my weaknesses my strengths.
His stats so good, in fact, they're the best in Augsburg history, since a guy named Devin George, who went on to play 11 years in the NBA. So yeah, all of a sudden the laundry guy's got some real potential.
Just to even be considered, in the same conversation with such a, phenomenal player is phenomenal. It's really, exciting, and obviously I have confidence in myself, and I have really high, goals, dreams, and expectations.
Just keep fighting. But if for some reason pro basketball doesn't work out, at least he's got some other work experience.
I'd like to think I'm decent at laundry now.
David McHugh, WCCO 4 Sports.
Can you find a better story? It's absolutely awesome. He's got stats that are equal to or better than Devin George. That doesn't mean he's going to go off to an NBA career necessarily, but the man knows how to do laundry. He is a catch for whoever wants him. He's also got a heck of a quick release, as we showed you earlier. Thanks again to David McHugh, the WCCO 4 sports reporter out there, and also to Don Stoner, sir. Yeah, I know, Don. Thanks for helping us out with those stories. I couldn't get enough of them. I had to make sure we got him on the show. The fact that he buried the shot on the same week that he's got that feature story. By the way, when weather was probably ruling everything in Minnesota this week, hats off to Booker Copeland. Looking forward to see what Augsburg can do. Again, they take on St. Thomas tonight. Granted, if you're listening to this on demand or on the podcast, you already know about that. Again, we're keeping track of scores. By the way, somebody asked us a question just as we were going to break on our Periscope stream, and it was Jay Murray asking us. I think Jay's associated with Wash U, but just in case, how rare is it for the 7th or 8th ranked team in a region to get into the tournament as a Pool C? It is rare. I would say pretty rare. I don't think it's maybe once a year. And even then, I don't think it happens that often. I remember on the women's side a number of years ago, they absolutely went to the rankings that weren't public. And we should point out that they might regionally rank. You might see, 8 teams in one region, 7 in another. Obviously, in the Northeast, it's 11 on the men's and 12 on the women's side. But they will rank below that because on the off chance that all of those teams come off the table, whether through automatic bids or at-large selections, they still need more teams there. So some teams will rise. Now, they don't get all of a sudden VRO data. They are not regionally ranked teams, but you need teams there. So there will be rankings below what we see publicly. And anyway, my point being is I think I can think of one time, maybe twice, that I've ever known the rankings to feature having used everybody. And I can think of a handful of times maybe a region like the Northeast has gone 8, 9 deep. Otherwise, it's pretty rare. If you are in the bottom half, the bottom third, especially bottom third to bottom half of a region, you need you need to win the AQ. Your at-large chances are pretty slim. That's pretty much how to look at that. But we responded to Jay on air or on through the system just in case, but glad he asked us the question nonetheless. Going to take another break. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about that bubble, and we'll talk to Trinity women's basketball coach Cameron Hill about being the top dog in the ASC, the SCAC. Because of the ASC and other things, do they feel like they've got to win to get in, as it were? Can they afford really to not win the SCAC tournament? And we'll talk about what they call the Together Tigers. This is a young team playing well. We'll talk to him about what it all means. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville when we get back.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school, it's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
Welcome to the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, home of Blue Gold Athletics. UW-Eau Claire has been ranked a top 5 regional public university for over 20 years. We graduate champions with the lowest debt and highest return on investment in the Midwest. Blue Gold Athletics is a Directors Cup Top 20 Division III program offering 22 sports with almost 700 student athletes. UW-Eau Claire is about excellence in the classroom, the field of competition, and the community. Are you the next Blue Gold?
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Big shots. Teamwork. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Krager Center in Salem.
Bounces right back with a triple. Great job here. And that'll do it!
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and get your tickets today.
And welcome back to Hoopsville on this Thursday evening, the 21st of February, 2019. Continue to watch scores from around the country to make sure how things are playing out. One score that jumps out at me is WPI has an early lead on MIT. Minute 13 left to go in the first half. They've got a 12-point lead on the Engineers. WPI trying to play spoiler. Of course, well coached under Chris Brantley. Capital has a lead over Baldwin Wallace at halftime. Nichols finds themselves down 15 to Western New England, 46-31. So some scores we'll keep an eye on so far in this one. Regionally ranked team, for example, York of Pennsylvania, up on Mary Washington, 32-29 late in the first half as well. Plenty of other games to keep an eye on. On the women's side, so far nothing jumping out at us. St. Thomas got the win over Gustavus Adolphus, 64-39. They're now 5 games done on the women's side as Merchant Marine got past Farmingdale State in the Skyline Conference. So keep an eye on things, and we'll continue to keep an eye on things throughout the rest of the show. Earlier today, I got a chance to talk to Trinity, Texas women's basketball coach Cameron Hill about his squad and how he felt things were going this season. The team is 21-4, 14-2 in conference play. They are the top dog, but they are not hosting the SCAC, despite what you're about to hear in the interview where I went sideways on that for a moment. They don't know who they're going to play, and the question is, can they get in if they don't win? Also, what is Together Tigers? It all makes sense when you hear it from Cameron Hill. I talked to him earlier today. Now joining me on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, it's the head coach of the Trinity Tigers. It is Cameron Hill. And, Coach, thanks as always joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I absolutely. We love talking basketball. Of course, catching you guys at kind of the summit, as it were, of the regular season. You guys have the conference tournament ahead of you, and it's at your place, which is definitely a plus. But there's still a lot of pressure on. How are you guys managing the week, and how are you getting ready for what will be, hopefully, 2 big games?
Yeah, it's actually at TOU this year, so it's close. It's not quite
That's
at home.
True, yeah.
But TOU is hosting, so it's been good, man. This team is we're really, really young, but they're also extraordinarily focused, and it's been really the whole season has been really incredible. But this week in particular, they're definitely attacking this with a contender mentality. They do not feel like they're the number 1 seed. They're going into this with every intent of being as competitive as possible.
Yeah, I should say, always confuse the number 1 seed with you guys already kind of have a host set in place for these events. So we always get them confused in the SCAC. But you are the top seed. You guys do have the best position available, at least who you're going to technically face. You guys sit in the middle of the regional rankings right now. In my eyes, you're in a spot that looks good in some ways, can be a challenge in others. Do you feel there's pressure that you got to win this to get in, that the at-large may not be reality, or do you feel comfortable that the at-large could still be, one of your realities moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we don't feel pressure either way, but we've always looked at it like we have to win to get in. And quite frankly, I mean, that's what I prefer. I don't think the South region, you get past the top 3, depending on how those other conferences shake out with their champions. I mean, one of those teams is going to get the one, or if there is even an at-large bid coming out of the South, it'll be to the number 1, 2, or 3 seed. I don't count on that ever. So, our intent is to earn it, and hopefully one of those other teams gets the at-large bid, but I don't think it'll be us.
What's interesting is the South this season, and we saw a little bit of it last season, really has developed. You've got yourself in Austin right now in the SCAC. You've got 3 others, ETVU not ranked, but certainly a team to keep an eye on top of the other 2 in Mary Hardin, Baylor, and Dallas in the ASC. How much has this South region changed in the last few years? Because I remember a few years ago talking to you, and you guys were like one of maybe 2 that really anybody took seriously.
Yeah, no, and don't forget Emory and Henry and Emory. And
Absolutely.
I mean, Bill Saps has had a phenomenal year, and Oglethorpe is playing really well. And, it's just it's great for our region to have basketball kind of growing up a little bit again. And there are some very good teams, and there's some really aggressive coaches. And, it's not just during basketball season that you learn what's ultimately going to take place. You see them when you're recruiting. You see the work that's being put in the off season, and because these events, man, we're all there together. So, it's not a surprise to me that these schools have ratcheted up their basketball, and their programs are all humming right now, and it's definitely great for our region.
Looking back at your season, you had some interesting challenges. You lost to Hardin Simmons early in the year. Austin got you guys as well, but you also put yourself on the line against a really good St. Thomas team, and let's be honest, that didn't go exactly your way. In that one, on that trip up north, despite the win over Augsburg. What did you guys learn from the early part of the season that you're using now?
Such a great question, man. You always dig into the good stuff. We schedule. I mean, we do everything we can do with regards to like just timing and opportunity to get as many great teams as we can. And we had to miss a couple games that we would have otherwise had to get that Minnesota trip on the books, and it also required us to go Augsburg, St. Thomas, Austin, and Centenary all in the same road trip. So it was a 4-game, including layovers, 6-state trip that we were on with a team that features 2 seniors and the rest are underclassmen. So, I mean, it was drinking from the fire hose. Meanwhile, the middle 2 teams are both ranked at the time. St. Thomas obviously is a machine, and Austin is capable every single time they play. So, we play Augsburg. It's an incredible game. They're a great team as well. Great coach, great players, and we find a way to win that one. And we're going into a back-to-back with the rest of St. Thomas, and then we're traveling right into Dallas to play Austin the next day. So it just was a 2-game stretch against really good teams that really forced us to open our eyes as to what we wanted this season to really mean and how badly we wanted to fight to kind of get to the level consistently that we needed to be at to ultimately win this number 1 seed and give ourselves a great shot going into this conference tournament.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, and I'm going to tell you right now, driving home from Abilene, I thought that the Hardin Simmons loss was a bad loss, and I can tell you that they're a good team. They're well coached. Also, they've got tough kids, and they beat us. It wasn't a fluke, man. They were good that night, and that game helped us too. We learned a ton, and I think this team, as young as we are, I think they've done a great job applying these lessons to how we're playing now.
SOS is pretty reasonable at a 537, which certainly thanks to going to the MIAC, for example, and playing some other teams along the way. Since then, just 1 loss. Of course, Texas Lutheran. Interestingly enough, all the losses pretty much on the road. You guys have controlled the home a little bit. So you've got a little bit of a mix this weekend. You've got the home treatment in the sense that it's not that far away and you are the top seed, but you are on the road per se. How do you guys make sure that road bug that seems to have cropped up a few times this season doesn't bite you this weekend?
Well, it's tournament time, so there's no. I mean, it's like Gene Hackman in Hoosiers, man. He gets out the tape measures, 10 feet, 15 feet. I mean, it's about balling now. It's not about where you're playing or even who you're playing. It's just about having a ton of confidence and recognizing the people in the locker room together are all focused on the same goal and just going out and performing. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about the stage. I'm just excited to see how this team competes.
Somewhat of a young team, too. You've got 2 seniors in the stats column, in Jackie Lang and I'm missing Rachel Chavez. Yeah. But you're led by a junior in Abby Holland at 17.5 points a game. She's also pulling down nearly 6 rebounds, handing out about 2 assists a game, 2.5 steals. But Emily Daniel, a sophomore, 10-plus points a game. You also have 5.5 rebounds and nearly 10 points out of Haley Coleman, a freshman, and another one in a sophomore in Julie Ackerman. Those are the stat leaders. This team obviously building towards the future, but what is the youth movement per se, my wording, helped with you guys this season?
It's fun. I mean, I think our culture here is really special, and we identify the kind of people, more importantly than the kind of players that we want to have around us. And they're ready when they get here. It's just a matter of figuring out, how to combine the players and what philosophically we want to do to give them the best chance to be successful. And, you don't mention Jordan Rudd in that conversation because statistically she's not up in the categories, but she is incredible. Just such a calming presence and such a great floor general. And Julia is a great shooter, but she's a great passer. And, obviously with Abby, there's never a situation where, no, sorry, she's in my office right now needing keys to open the closet downstairs. There's never a situation where you feel like she can't go get you a bucket. So, you know, the age of the players hasn't been as interesting to me as the way they've developed. That's been where the real gold has been this year. And I mean, they're playing really good team basketball, and it's exciting to see. And it's exciting to sit back in my chair and realize that we got the bulk of this team coming back. So,
yeah,
you know, it's a great feeling.
11 to, you know, maybe 13 or 14 deep in a lot of games too. You're willing to go into that youth and into that bench a bit in any given time at any given in any given game.
For sure. I mean, that's been a focal point from day one here. I mean, we like to have 3 teams of 5 every day in practice. Everybody gets reps. Everybody goes at each other. So we're constantly building that game depth so that, you know, in the instance that you need somebody, they're not playing competitively for the first time in a month. Like, they compete every single day. And, you know, that's been awesome because, I mean, when you break down the minutes of an entire season, the amount of time you spend practicing is about 7 times the amount of time you spend playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, those are the minutes that make a difference. So you work those minutes so that the minutes in the games are as clean as you can have them be. And our team does, I mean, everybody wants to play, but they embrace what we're trying to do, and they rally around the cause. And, you know, I think that'll be on display this weekend for sure.
The term "Together Tigers" was shared with me. What's the mentality behind that? We hear a lot of catchphrases and titles and stuff from teams, but they don't always mean the same thing. So what does it mean for you guys?
You know, it's the only way we work. You know, I mean, we modify our daily schedule if somebody has a class conflict. We don't ever practice without the whole team. We don't travel without the whole team. There's nothing we do where everybody's not included in a valuable part of what we're trying to accomplish. And, you know, it started as just something that I would say in my first year here, trying to kind of create a new culture. Mm-hmm. And it has literally it's evolved into, like, we just refer to the players as the togethers. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's completely solidified everything that this culture stands for. And they buy into it, man. And it's not just our team. Like, the whole campus kind of knows Together Tigers now, which for me to kind of sit back and just watch it all evolve is really special. But the players have absolutely grabbed it with both hands, and they're driving it. And, I mean, it's a real thing for sure.
It's interesting to hear that because, again, it changes with everybody. It can also change with the personnel a little bit. You've had a lot of experience and certainly excelled at Trinity since you took over the program and kind of gotten back up there. It's obviously never going to be at the exact same level, but how do you maintain the level you guys have had?
You know, I mean, I think it starts with our assistant coach, Joe, and the job he does recruiting. I mean, it's his job to put the list together, and then we work together to tighten it up and ultimately make the decision on who we want to be a part of this. But the people make everything. I mean, people are the most important thing in anything you talk about, and we have great people. And, you know, we've been able to get the recruiting model to a point where, you know, it's kind of feeding itself at this point. So I just feel like the work we do, the way that we run our program, the way we practice every day, and then the people that we're fortunate to have as members of this program, they all work together to kind of help us generate that consistency. And believe me, though, man, I tell you right now, it's not taken for granted by a long shot. I mean, we work really hard to do it, and our players understand the responsibility that comes with being a member of this team. So, you know, it's a lot of work, and I'm hopeful that, like you talked about, you know, the youth of our current roster is going to allow us to continue to do this for many years.
How do you guys get ready for the next one? There's 2 semifinals, Southwestern in Colorado and Texas Lutheran and Shriner. Austin's the other one who gets the bye with you guys. How do you get ready for this game when basically there's so much of an unknown and we're not that far out from that semifinal?
Yeah, no, it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo ending, man. You don't know who's underneath the mask. You're just kind of waiting to see. So we're just kind of doing that, man. We're gonna have a nice workout tomorrow morning, and we're gonna watch the games, and we're gonna see who wins. And you know, we've been preparing for all 4 teams all week long. And you know, the beautiful thing about conference play, I mean, you get 2 rounds with them every single season, so you know a lot. There's not a ton of evolution throughout the season. Some teams change based on injury or eligibility or whatever, but for the most part, you know, we know what they are. They know what we are. It's going to boil down to who can execute their offensive and defensive game plan better. And you know, from that standpoint, we're pretty versatile. So I like our ability to change based on who we're playing or change based on what may or may not be working inside that particular game. So, we're just kind of sitting back and paying attention and getting ourselves ready to go.
And those games are also early, 12 local and 2 local time, 1 and 3 o'clock Eastern time, so it gives you a chance that evening to get ready for the next day's game. You'll play at 12 o'clock local time on Saturday. Right. Cameron, always appreciate the time. Appreciate you joining us and chatting about the Tigers. Good luck this weekend in the conference tournament. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah, just as always, man, I think what you do is amazing. I really appreciate you always thinking of us at some point throughout the season, and I value the time to be on your show. So thank you so much, Dave. I wish you guys the best.
Thanks, Cameron. Appreciate it. Do me a favor. Give Cunningham a hard time for me when you get a chance. Always appreciate the assist on that.
Always.
Take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dave.
Absolutely. Cameron Hill joining us from Trinity, Texas here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Thanks, Cameron, for his time as they get ready for the tournament. Not everybody able to join us on the show here this Thursday evening, but Cameron taking the time to do so. We appreciate it nonetheless. Listen, they're right in that weird area, enough upsets, and they need to have the AQ. I think there's still a chance you could see 4 or 5 teams out of Texas. I just don't. 5's a bit of a pipe dream. 4 has got a chance. The reality more likely is going to be 3, but there's a chance if the right upsets take place, like Austin, for example, beating Trinity in the championship. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out there down in Texas. And he mentioned the rest of that South, chock-a-block as well on the women's side. You've got, by the way, it looks like earlier this show I was talking about the weird rankings. I was talking about the second week rankings on the men's side. I apologize. We'll update that later. But on the women's side down there in the South, Emory and Henry is sitting in the 2 spot. You got Oglethorpe in the 4. You got Millsaps in the 8. Emory sitting in the 5. I'm a little surprised Yodak's not in a stronger spot. But some of those teams also a little bit more beat up than I think I expected them to be this time around. Anyway, really, really interesting conversation there with Cameron. We appreciate his time. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about the offseason. Kristen Carrott will join us from Cedar Crest Women's Basketball. She's also the Assistant Director of Athletic Performance. She'll join us in the WBCA Center Court. A little bit interesting topic considering the Stevens Point investigation that finally resolved itself a few weeks ago. We'll talk to her about a lot. Coming up next, you're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Back with more after this.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
Big shots. Teamwork. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Krager Center in Salem.
Bounces right back with a triple. Great job here. And that'll do it!
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and get your tickets today.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, here on this Thursday, the 21st of February. Again, if you got questions for us, we're scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also, I'm sorry, I do that. Every once in a while, I cite off that one. That doesn't seem to be working. Email me at dave.mchugh at d3sports.com. Also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we're keeping track of things. If you've messaged us and whatnot, you can also join us on the YouTube page. We're trying to do our best to keep track of wherever you are, even on Periscope. We'll try and answer your questions, of course, on Twitter. Keeping track of scores around the country going on here tonight as well. All right, so we're supposed to talk the show last week, as you all might remember. Of course, being ill didn't work out, but our guest slated for the WBCA Center Court last week was one that we wanted to talk to for a varying degree of reasons. One, very unique situation at Cedar Crest College, which is an all-women's college. But the other reason being is she is the assistant director for athletic performance. In other words, she's kind of oversees workout routines, especially in the off season and all that other stuff. And with the Stevens Point case, I found that a little bit interesting. But at the same time, that is very much a thing that is taken over a lot of programs throughout. Not only Division I, obviously, where it's very common, but in Division III as well. So joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline is the head coach of Cedar Crest. It is Kristen Carrot. And, Coach, thanks for taking the time to join us here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate the time. First and foremost, head coach now at there for what, this was your second season? Is that correct? Second season? Something like that? Third season.
That is my third.
I can't do math. It's a small problem.
That's okay. My kids will tell you, neither can I, so don't worry about it.
Very good. Got there in 2016. You came from Tufts, if memory serves, where you were an assistant coach for quite a bit of time. I got to ask, what brought you to Cedar Crest?
Just the opportunity to create something and build something kind of from the ground up. My friends, my colleagues, my kids will tell you I'm obsessively attracted to challenges, and I just loved. I knew that they were had a little bit of a down year before I got there. They hadn't won a game, and then just stepping on campus and meeting the other coaches, meeting with the athletic director. I just knew that this would be a great place to start, my head coaching career. And so far, so good.
We should point out you actually came from Nichols. You started things off at Tufts.
I started at Tufts.
Yeah, and then went to Nichols, where you were the strength and conditioning and practice planner. Also did some video breakdown, and that's kind of what got me intrigued. You were suggested by somebody in the WBCA groupings when WBCA sent out and said, hey, you should talk to, and you were one of those they suggested. And I found it interesting that, you besides coaching, strength and conditioning, practice planning, video breakdown, organizing practices, and all of that other stuff, people don't realize there's a lot that can sometimes go into not only a head coaching job, but extra jobs to justify salaries, for lack of a better description, in Division III. How did you get so involved in those other aspects, and what do you find so fascinating about them?
Yeah, well, as far as the strength and conditioning side goes, that's where I kind of started my career in collegiate athletics. I had thought that I wanted to go that strength and conditioning route. I loved it. I loved working with athletes. I loved working with teams. And then as I had furthered my career that way, I realized I just missed basketball. I missed coaching basketball, and I was lucky enough that Coach Berube gave me that opportunity to kind of do both there in a lot of ways. But then here at Cedar Crest, kind of building the strength and conditioning program literally from the ground up has been a challenge, but also, tremendous experience, and it's actually been a whole lot of fun. As far as balancing it all goes, it's definitely a challenge, but I'm lucky that I have great student athletes that buy into our program, both through sport and also the strength and conditioning piece. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's now in my third year, so it's just kind of par for the course at this point. But it's definitely a lot of fun. And, as far as being a coach is, you talk to different coaches every week, film breakdown, practice planning, all that stuff is just part of the job. And when you love it, you love it, and it just kind of becomes ingrained in you that once the season ends, you kind of feel like empty. It's just like a part of you like, wait, I don't have to do a scouting report today. I don't need to watch film. It feels like something is missing on some days. So it's great.
Well, what's interesting though is you're also in charge of that, especially the as they called it, Cedar Crest athletic performance side of it for the entire department. And again, single sex. It's not like you've got 25 teams. It's what, about 9 or 10 if memory serves. But that's still an interesting thing there. You're now working with the other head coaches and assistants and their teams to cater workouts and all of that stuff in the off season, as I understand it, for their teams and their players to be ready for when their season starts back up again. Is that a fair way of saying it? And how challenging is that?
Yeah, it's 100% accurate. When in starting the program, it was challenging, but now, my sport coaches are probably gonna get mad at me for this, but we're kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. The athletes kind of know what to expect. They've bought into the program, which is, I thank the sport coaches and my athletic director 100% for helping me create that buy-in. But yeah, we work with the athletes. In season they lift 1 day a week with me. Out of season it's 3 days a week on a volunteer basis, and then their off season is 2 days a week once again on a volunteer basis. But we've had great results so far. I think the athletes love it. They really do. And one of the things I think that has made it so successful, as you said, we are a women's college, so we do have 10 teams. But how I kind of started the program was I went to every single home game and sat on the bench and supported these student athletes, so they knew that I was there, and the head coaches knew that I was 100% on their support staff. I'm an extension of them. What do they need to work on? What do they see? What do I see? What do the student athletes see? And we just kind of went from there and grew the program. And so far it's been a great experience.
Of course, every sport's different. What you design for basketball is not going to work necessarily for soccer or volleyball or lacrosse or the like. So you also have to be very experienced and understanding of what works and doesn't work for a lot of different kinds of athletes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, that for me is the fun part of it. Designing programs is kind of the fun part for me, because I get to put my thinking hat on and as some of my coaches and the students will tell you, the science part of things is really what I love. But yeah, I sit down with the sport coaches at the beginning of their season, at the end of their season. We talk about, collectively what we liked, what worked, what didn't work, what the student athletes liked, what didn't work, what injuries did we see, where do we need improvements, were they able to compete for 90 minutes on the soccer field, or for 5 sets in a volleyball game, or for 40 minutes in a basketball game? And if not, where can we make those tweaks in their strength and conditioning programs? And it's definitely a collective effort, but it's been fun. So
now the challenge, of course, in Division III is that coaches, there's a very strict time period where coaches are allowed to work with their student athletes in the gym or on the field or whatnot. And we've certainly been reminded of that in the Stevens Point men's case that finally came to a resolution after 3.5 years, and how many practices leading up to the season of 5 weeks and coming out of a season for 5 weeks for 5 years that they were doing, that were organized by the coach, that were run by the coach, that while he may not have overseen them, sometimes he was, but he certainly was kind of controlling that. How difficult is it, or maybe the better question to start with is, how is this able to be done within the guidelines of what Division III says you can and cannot do?
Yeah, I can't say that we have the perfect solution. I'm sure there are other schools that do it better, but we have very open communication between myself and the sport coaches. So with that comes trust. It comes buy-in. It comes belief in what we're doing in philosophy. So our sport coaches, when they come to me, whether it's in season for a lift or out of season during their volunteer workouts where I oversee them in the weight room, the trust factor is there. They know that we are going to work to get these athletes better. We're going to get them to compete. We're going to keep them healthy. We're going to get them stronger. We're going to have a little fun along the way. So it's and of course sometimes it takes me walking out of someone's office and them following me and me saying no. But it's for the most part we do a great job of that, just talking in season about what we want to do, and then out of season just the trust that the student athletes and I are going to get it done. And like I said, we do have those volunteer workouts in the off season that I am allowed to monitor as the strength coach. And so far, we've got the athletes to buy in, we've got the head coaches to buy in. So there's really no need for them to feel as though they have to monitor these workouts, or they have to design these programs, or they have to be a part of it. There's that trust factor that in the conversations that we've had during their season of what I need to and what the athletes need to accomplish in the off season through those volunteer workouts.
I'll circle back on the rules again in a second, but another thing too, as I understand it, is you aren't necessarily required, or maybe I should even say the rules don't allow you to even report back to the coach about who's shown up or hasn't shown up. There's something in there. So the players have to trust you too, but it's also written in the rules.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, there's no real communication allowed between myself and the sport coach especially out of season, about who's showing up, who's lifting what weights, who's not making their times, those kind of things. And that also, I think, especially at Cedar Crest, we've done a good job of also that trust factor with the athletes come in too. That, I'm not going to report back times, or I'm not going to report back that it's their time where they get to get better. They get to, get stronger. They get to just kind of work together, and build that team camaraderie as well. So that's what we try to get accomplished.
Sure.
And so far, so good.
Well, and back to you then being a coach yourself, how careful do you have to be with your own team? Or, to be blunt, is that a loophole that, I don't want to say you take advantage of, but that allows you to be kind of monitoring things? Or do you guys have to find another solution with that?
Yeah, no, through the NCAA guidelines, it would be perfectly okay for me to work with my team. However, I do not. They see enough of me throughout the season, and I think they're probably glad not to see my face in the weight room. But no, we've hired an assistant strength coach that does work with my team, and no, we don't. I mean, other than he's my assistant, strength coach, we talk about other teams, but no, when they're with him, they're with him. We don't have any communication about my team. And could we? Absolutely. But once again, I think for my team, they need to also have that trust in that, camaraderie and that relationship with my assistant strength coach, like I do with all the other student athletes.
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with the Stevens Point case, but one of the conversations in there, or at least one of the talking points that was being driven, was that a change in the rules in 2011, which is kind of what we're talking about here, where a strength coach or somebody can oversee a program, or if you have another title, you can, you're allowed to be in the room, as it were, for lack of a better description. They were using that to say, well, that's why he was in the balcony overlooking his team as they were practicing, or whatever the case may be. How much is that legit? And not in their case specifically, but I mean generically. How legit is that, or how much is that a slippery slope that you have to be careful with?
Yeah, I think, I can't speak on another program, of course. But for us, we don't try to go down that slippery slope. Yes, absolutely. Can a sport coach be in a weight room to monitor for safety issues? 100%. We don't necessarily utilize that at Cedar Crest only because we don't want that what if factor.
Right.
What is that kind of gray area? But that is I guess technically it could be a loophole, but I do know that there needs to be some certifications that go along with that.
Sure.
If they're presenting as a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, their case was more about facility oversight more than strength and conditioning, but similar ideas.
Yeah. So if they have an assistant coach or even a head coach that's overseeing the facility, they can absolutely be in there. But once again, they can't comment on the workout. They can't, encourage or talk to their players.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they walk in and say hello, of course you can say hello, but there can't be any type of cheering or pushing or monitoring or pictures being posted, especially for out-of-season teams on Instagram or anything that can go back to the coach being able to monitor those student athletes outside of their declared season.
It certainly opens up Pandora's box, which I think gets a little crazy in Division III, but we're going to go down a rabbit hole if we go any further.
Absolutely.
What I really want to get to is how much does this work? And I don't mean that as, in a negative connotation. I just mean, are these proven to be successful, to help teams improve in the long run?
Well, I mean, I believe obviously it's a trade. It's something I'm passionate about.
Sure.
I think it has. I can tell you at Cedar Crest, we've increased our win total, and my AD is probably going to kill me for not knowing the exact percentage. All of our teams have increased their win total. We've had our fall teams made the postseason. We had our soccer team play in the conference championship. The championship for I believe the first time in Cedar Crest history, and I think where I measure it is we didn't have one season-ending injury, and that's a big testament to the work that the student athletes put in. So, do I think it works? I believe so. Are we going to go from 0-25 to national championships the next year based on strength and conditioning? Probably not. But as far as keeping our athletes healthy, I definitely think that it matters. And as far as, what I've seen, the biggest thing is just that buy-in, that compete factor, that team bonding that they get in the weight room is, I think, crucial to their individual sports season. So I definitely think that it has a positive impact on the student athletes and sports-specific teams.
If you went from 0-25 to national champion, we'd be having you on the show for a whole different reason. Curious, though, let's talk quickly about your team before I let you go. Cedar Crest is a tough spot. It's an all-women's school that probably not a lot of people know about. It's not like the Welsleys of the world. You did take over first season, back-to-back 3-win seasons now, 6-win season now this season, which certainly was a nice step in the right direction. What are the challenges of getting a program to be successful at a Cedar Crest-like school? And we can certainly go down the list of them. And with that in mind, why can't it succeed? Like, in other words, give me a reason why it could succeed.
Yeah, I think 100% of kind of what you just said is that comparison to a school like Wellesley or Smith or Mount Holyoke. When I took over the program, I knew that was going to be a challenge. Mm-hmm. And in 3 years, we've built a culture where now these kids are excited to win. Mm-hmm. This year, I think they got a small glimpse of that. If you look at our scores from last season to this season, I mean, we competed in almost every game, whereas years before we weren't really competing. So those kids have now gotten a taste of what it's like to be in games. They know what it's like to practice hard. They know what it's like to get see a scouting report and be able to implement that. I think that's the first step. And then recruiting is obviously a big part of it. And selling, what Cedar Crest is known for. And it's a great academic institution. And yeah, I mean, it's an up and coming program. What I say to all of my recruits is, you have a chance to build something here. You have a chance to really put your name on a program. And the way that I coach, and the way in the kids that I'm that I want in this program, they feed off that. They love that. They can't wait to compete. They can't wait to build, and they want to leave the program better than they found it. And I think that's the first step.
What's the biggest challenge to recruit at a single-sex school?
I think it's that.
Okay.
I think it's that in and of itself, because it's that one question you ask a recruit that you can't change.
Yeah,
you can take a kid to a dorm, or you can take a student athlete into your gym. They may they wanted to play for a school that's blue and white, and you're yellow and black. That's one of those things. But if a student athlete is really against a women's college, I can't change that. Yeah. There's really no convincing them of that. So I would say that is the biggest challenge. But there are also so many positives to it. But yeah, that's their greatest challenge.
Makes sense. I'd love to talk to you more, but I'm going to let you go. I know you got better things to do. But before we do, we have this quick 6-7 question thing that we do with every coach in the WBCA Center Court, if you don't mind having a little fun with us.
Sure, absolutely.
First, favorite thing about coaching, especially in Division III?
Working with the student athletes.
Makes sense. Biggest pet peeve?
In general?
In coaching mainly, but yeah, I mean, wherever you want to take that.
Poor officials.
You probably see your fair share, unfortunately. Favorite rule or nuance to the game?
The 10-second backcourt.
You like that? Yeah, I am a fan of it as well. But on that thought, is there any rule you would want to see added, removed, or changed?
I would like the 5-second on the ball, the dribbler back.
Yeah, I would too. I miss that call. I still look for it, and I keep forgetting it's gone.
Oh, same.
And then get confused when the 5 seconds called on the holding the ball.
Nope.
My brain still hasn't done it. It's been how many years now? You have any pregame ritual or superstition?
I have a lot. I think number one is what I write in the corner of our whiteboard every game.
Okay, it's same thing, or just you have to
same
find?
Thing.
Oh, you do?
Nope, same thing. Yep, same thing every single game.
Do you mind sharing?
Sure. I say play hard, play smart, play together.
Oh, very nice. What's your craziest travel experience? Whether you were a player at Becker or your coaching assistant or head coach, just craziest travel experience.
Crazy travel experience is on our way to the Sweet 16 when I was a coach at Tufts, and one of our student athletes left their wallet on an airplane.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Where were you guys going? I forgot what year.
Chicago.
That's right.
It was my first year.
Yeah. Oh, did you get it back?
We did. Yes, we did.
Oh, good. Oh, jeez. I've left my wallet on a bus before getting on a train going in Europe. I never saw that wallet again. And my passport, I may add. It's a really great thing to lose in Europe. How would your assistants describe you as a coach?
Passionate.
Okay. This one might be interesting considering the question we asked at the end. What do you tell a recruit that would get them excited or get them to commit to Cedar Crest?
The chance to build a program and to play for someone who loves the game probably just as much, if not more, than they do.
Oh, very nice. And finally, when you retire, and all good coaches do, when do you hope that people will remember you as a coach?
That I left the game better than I found it.
Oh, very nice. Appreciate the time. We always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts for those tuned in?
Congratulations and good luck to all the teams left in the tournament. I hope you guys end on a great season, and I'm waiting for October 15th already.
I'm sure you are. I know you're at a game, so I appreciate the time you gave us. Thanks. Take care, and we'll talk to you somewhere down the road.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave.
Absolutely. Kristen Carrott joining us here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Great to chat with her. Fun to chat with her. Fascinating take. Again, these are these different jobs that let you stay involved with student athletes, but as she said, she still disconnects, probably for good reason. I still think the NCAA's got to go back and maybe look at Division III, I should say. Go back and look at some of those rules, but they found a way to not have it be an issue. But I find it more interesting of how they use those strength and conditioning people to keep. I mean, when I played, there was nobody in the off season that gave us anything to stay in shape. As a soccer player, I had to go and figure out what was best for me. I probably would have benefited Granted, this was just when kind of weight training was in its infancy, to be honest. It's not nearly as high-tech as it is now, but fascinating chat with her. Appreciate her time. When we come back, we will switch gears, talk to a team who's maybe on the bubble. Middlebury men's basketball coach Jeff Brown joins us to talk about his team, another loss in the quarterfinals of the NESCAC, and whether they'll be playing in March. Plus, how'd the season go? You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
A lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
UW-Eau Claire and Mayo Clinic Health System are creating amazing opportunities for students from across the Midwest. Our collaborative research agreement allows students to work with world-renowned physicians and scientists. And with more than 80 majors, UW-Eau Claire is the perfect fit for those who dream big and are ready to change the world.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Big shots. Big dunks. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum Arena in Fort Wayne.
With his third triple.
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, here on this Thursday evening. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we're live simulcasting the show. Also checking the chat boards on any of those avenues in case you have a question or a comment for us. So a little bit of tonight's theme is the bubble trouble. Teams that might be in the proverbial bubble situation. Interesting enough, Middlebury Panthers, if memory serves, and Jeff Brown can maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but Middlebury was in the driver's seat of the NESCAC tournament. They had finished on in a three-way tie atop the conference standings, and I believe we're going to be hosting the tournament should they continue moving on, despite the fact they had lost to Amherst in their last regular season game, 97-93. Unfortunately, they lost to Tufts, 85-76 in the quarterfinals. Championship tournament, the semifinals and championship, I should say, will be at Hamilton instead. And once again, Middlebury finds themselves on the outside. Last time they were in this spot, we all knew they were going to get into the NCAA tournament. Ended up not playing games for a couple of weeks and then doing pretty well in the tournament. What's this time got in store? Joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, it's the head coach of the Panthers. It is Jeff Brown. And, Coach, thanks for the time to take to join us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dave.
Curious, obviously didn't go as planned. I don't think any coach would like to lose their last two games in a row, but I'm sure it stung a little bit more knowing that there was a real chance that you guys would be hosting this weekend the NESCAC tournament.
Yeah, certainly. For history's sake, this is the third year in a row that we have tied for the regular season championship in the NESCAC. And, a year ago we had to go on the road because of the tiebreakers. We ended up being the 5 seed. And this year being tied with Amherst and Hamilton, we, as luck would have it, we won the tiebreaker and we were in that position, but it didn't work out last Saturday against Tufts.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I say it a little bit tongue-in-cheek because I know from watching soccer, men's soccer, all the low seeds won the entire way. The 8th seed Colby ended up taking the conference tournament. So to say the NESCAC is a battle and anything is possible would be a cliche because obviously a top seed going down shouldn't be the biggest shock in the world. But I felt like this season you guys and Amherst kind of lurked while Hamilton and Williams and even Wesleyan to some degree kind of took a lot of the spotlight this season. You guys kind of spread out the losses a little bit, kind of were quiet. It was a nice, 7-game run there, mid-January to early February that put you guys in the spot you were in. What was it about your team this year that either was so good that we all missed it or that you guys were still trying to figure out that you finally got in that stretch?
Well, I think the biggest thing was just we do have a pretty youthful team. We start a couple sophomore guards, Jack Farrell and Max Bosco. We bring another sophomore guard, Griffin Corniger, off the bench as the first guy off the bench. So I think, it was just a thing of really maturing and just, as a unit playing some guys extended minutes who hadn't played that much, the previous year.
Interesting enough, Corniker was also starting at one point, was he not? It was almost a decision that you guys made to have him come in as your 6th man that seemed to be the turning point to some degree. Whether it's him, the 6th man, or the guy who's starting, whatever the case may be, that decision seemed to kind of spur you guys a little bit.
Yeah, I think it did because Max Bosco provided a lot of punch for us off the bench, and when we moved him to the starting lineup at the start of each half, we had a very talented offensive group on the floor and also finishing games and so forth. But we were fortunate to win some close games during that stretch and really try to build an identity. And I think the change did help us a little bit.
I thought maybe nothing against Griffin that his dad Rob had finally crossed the line with you. You'd had enough of his coaching from the stands. You've got a bit of a young team here. You've got 2 seniors, and the rest is pretty young. You got a good handful of juniors, certainly, and Matt Folger is one we won't soon forget about. But this team also, again, feels young. It feels like you're still developing somewhat.
Yeah, well, certainly. We've made great strides throughout the year. But again, playing in a competitive league like the NESCAC, it's difficult at times to have a lot of success as a young player just because of the talent level of the league and just adjusting to the competition level.
When you look at, so now you're sitting in this spot where you're a couple of years, I don't remember how many years ago you guys had the similar situation where you ended up losing in the quarterfinals, but everyone knew you were going to make the NCAA tournament. And so I'm sure you guys had a certain mentality to keep practices up, keep being fresh, and get ready for March. I'd argue this time around that's a little bit more of a gray area. You guys being the 5th in the regional rankings this past week, who knows what a loss to Tufts may or may not do, and who knows what else the region does, to be blunt. I think there's a chance you guys get in, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit more interesting. Are you still keeping up practices? Are you still keeping the guys focused, or are you giving them some time to lick their wounds?
We took the same approach as we did last year. We took a few days off right away and then got back to practice. We went back to practice yesterday. We just got off the practice floor today, and we'll practice tomorrow, take the weekend off, and, watch the show on Monday, and, hopefully we'll get a call.
Do you talk about it? Is this something that's discussed with the team? Did you go in saying, listen, we got to make sure we get past this game, or is it not one of those conversations? And I asked, having had a mixture of answers from coaches in recent weeks.
You know, it hasn't been much that has been discussed, and you know, obviously the guys were down, you know, after losing the Tufts on Saturday. But again, we're dealing with an unknown. We don't know. I think we have a fairly strong resume, but you know, a lot of teams do, and it really comes down to some of the conference tournaments and some of the favorites winning that allow, you know, more spots, and you know, hopefully it will at least get to the board at some point during the process.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think you know, I think we will be ready if called. But every year there are teams around the country. You know, it's really hard to measure different teams from different conferences and different regions of the country and so forth in a comparison set. Where last year, with our strength, not strength of schedule, but our win percentage being a little bit higher, I had more comfort that we would get a call. And this year, I think it's sort of more on the bubble.
Yeah. Quickly about the team again, Jack Farrell leading the way as a sophomore. Again, that youth I was talking about, 16 points a game, almost 5 rebounds a game, nearly 4 assists a game, plus a steal and a half. Mac Bosco, as you mentioned, Max, the sophomore, 15 points a game, 3 assists a game as well. Matt Folger, who we mentioned, 15 points a game, and he hauls in nearly 9 rebounds a game, nearly a double-double really for him. Eric McCord, nearly a double-double, 9.5 points, 9.9 rebounds for the senior. I'm sure he'd love to get one more game to bump that to finish as a double-double. That foursome is certainly good, but you mentioned Corniker, you mentioned some of these other guys. You go, about 8-9 deep in every single game. Do the stats tell us the whole story, or is there more to the story?
Well, I think the stats tell us that we're a very balanced team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we play well on both sides of the ball. We're top 10 in the country in rebounds per game. We're top 20 in the country in assists per game. We're top 5 in the country in block shots. So it's a team that can win in a variety of different ways. And you know, we're really led, Dave, with our seniors. Eric McCord has really been a soldier in our program. Big, strong post player, defends the position well, runs the floor, gives us some scoring. But as an offensive rebounder, he's tremendous. He's just relentless on the offensive boards, getting us second and third opportunities. And then Halal Dahlia has really been the glue guy for us in his senior year. Mm-hmm. Both our captains have really led great in terms of being a captain of a lot of youngsters in the program and being a great example. But Halal has stepped up his defense, and he really helps us, by being an offensive player that doesn't necessarily look overly aggressively for his own shot. So he runs the offense, he makes smart plays, and again, defensively, he's helped us a great deal during our season.
NESCAC's interesting. 8 teams above 500 of the overall records. Bowdoin, the lowest on that totem pole at 15-9, though they were 4-6 in conference play. Tufts at 12-13 now. And then Bates and Connecticut College rounded out the bottom. We've always known the NESCAC's a tough conference, but I think sometimes for those further away from the NESCAC, it's harder to understand with such a different schedule, as it were, for conference play. From your vantage point, how much has changed with the NESCAC over the years?
The balance of the league. When I first started coaching in the NESCAC, Dave, it was Williams and Amherst, and sometimes Trinity getting into the mix, but there was really a big gap, and a lot of times the first place team might go undefeated or have a loss. 2 years in a row, got teams tied for the top of the league have had 3 losses out of the 10 games. So it just really speaks to 8 teams, within 2 games, of the conference schedule, and again, just really, really competitive athletics in the NESCAC.
One concern I've heard from a few is that in a few years, just the way the NESCAC starts practices and schedules and the way the Division III season now starts, and way you guys don't start to the weekend before Thanksgiving, about 2.5 weeks of the season is going to be done and dusted by the time you guys tip up for the first time, and that out-of-conference opponents might be are harder to find, or at least quality ones. Do you have that same concern? Are you looking that far ahead at what you guys need to do? Because you have to find so many games, especially you guys, because you don't even have the secondary games like the little 3 and the main 3.
Yeah, that's been my biggest concern, is just the overall scheduling. It was interesting this past summer in June, I was left searching for 5 games, and I came up with an additional road game in Philadelphia after already having Swarthmore on our schedule. I was able to schedule Pitt Bradford and Hilbert in Bradford, PA, and Buffalo, New York, and they're not exactly around the corner for us. So it's always been a concern in terms of how to put together our schedule, and I've always felt that having a challenging non-league schedule to go along with the NESCAC grind is really important for our team to develop and to really improve. And it's really become very, very difficult in recent years to put that schedule together.
Is it getting to the point that maybe the conference needs to re-examine things?
To be honest with you, as a conference, we really haven't looked at adding additional games probably for the last 12 to 15 years. Mm-hmm. Years ago, we had some discussions, and it didn't lead very far. So I'm not confident that we're going to go to a double round robin or a split where you play half the league one additional time. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of conversations heading in that direction.
Does it almost have to be a moment where everybody sees the light before that happens, or do you think that can be something that's seen a little bit further in advance to keep you all from being in a bit of a bind?
Well, I'm not sure if the other institutions are having the same difficulties in terms of putting the schedule together. I do know that when I get on the scheduling board, there's usually some NESCACs searching because we have to find 14 non-league games.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a challenge.
For some conference or for some schools, that is their conference schedule, 14 games, or thereabouts. So you certainly have a lot. Just appreciate the thoughts. I was just kind of curious again, hearing different words out of that neck of the woods. That in a couple of years, the calendar may really kind of come back and bite you guys to some degree. Coach, appreciate the time you took to join us. We'll look forward to seeing if we see your name on Monday's show. But more importantly, if we even select it on Sunday's show. Good luck keeping the guys focused. In the meantime, as always, we give you the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Well, just again, we're really happy with the work that you do with P3 Hoops, putting the spotlight on the student athletes, and they work very, very hard, and there's a tremendous amount of good players at our level, and I think for them to get recognition is really great. But keep doing what you're doing, and it's really well appreciated around the country.
Well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate it very much. Take care of yourself, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Okay, I hope to speak with you.
Absolutely. Take care. Jeff Brown joining us from Middlebury on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. All interviews on the Hoopsville Hotline, courtesy of our partners at Blue Frame Technology and their industry-leading production truck software. Is your college ready to showcase its teams through a reliable and innovative video streaming service that won't break your budget? Blue Frame's advanced digital broadcast tools will help take your broadcast to the next level. Learn more today by visiting blueframetech.com. That's www.blueframetech.com. Ryan Scott lets us know that Jim Calhoun in St. Jones of Connecticut has pulled off another upset in the GNAC. They are now on to the GNAC finals. I can't remember who they'll play, but we'll check in on that. And MIT just lost on a buzzer beater from WPI. MIT was down 35-17 at halftime. They lose on a buzzer beater. That will most likely pop another bubble. And interesting enough, just getting off the phone with Jeff Brown, that will put MIT most likely, I would assume, ahead, or keep MIT ahead of Middlebury in those regional rankings, which would keep Middlebury from getting to the table. So those are the kinds of upsets. And there's others that have already taken place. We will take a break. When we come back, we will go through some of the results that we have already seen around the country that could put some bubble teams into some jeopardy. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. More Hoopsville when we get back.
Big shots. Big dunks. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum Arena in Fort Wayne.
With his third triple.
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, here on this Thursday evening. Bubble trouble is we're talking about, and that trouble is already popping up. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. You can also join us on the chat rooms, whether in Facebook or YouTube. Bill, I see your question. Hang on, I will get to it. We were talking about upsets already taking place. Ryan giving us that information. Let's see here. Nichols ends up winning, so that saves a bubble for now, but Capital has lost, or looks like they're going to lose. We got to update our scoreboard, by the way. There we go. Hit a little refresh here. Nichols ends up winning 87-79 to save that bubble for now. On the men's side, we mentioned MIT going down to WPI. MIT was down 35-17 at a halftime. Outscored WPI 36-20 in the second half, but it wasn't enough. According to WPI, Colin McNamara drained a 14-footer to beat the Horn as the fifth seed defeated the top seed. MIT lost 55-53 in the semifinals. That will pop a bubble. Bill asked, what do Middlebury and MIT losses mean to the LEC teams, Little East? Could the Little East get two teams into the dance? Here's why I'm going to say no. And here's why I'm going to say that. One of those teams is losing. And so one of those teams is just as equal as they were beforehand to Williams and MIT and the Middlebury and everybody else. Remember, in the Northeast right now, and by the way, I was talking earlier about rankings. I was looking at week 2 for some reason, week 3. Amherst is 1, Hamilton 2, Williams 3, Nichols 4, MIT 5, Middlebury 6. Then you get into the LEC and Keene State and Eastern Connecticut, and then Gordon, Wesley, and Colby. MIT and Middlebury have already lost. Keene State or Eastern Connecticut's going to lose, if not both of them. You got to figure one's going to lose and one gets the AQ for argument's sake. So on paper, I don't see any reason that they're going to leapfrog in front of MIT or Middlebury now. Nichols has won. If Nichols were to lose, it's another at-large team that stays ahead of the LEC. And you've got to figure, in fact, that Amherst, Hamilton, and Williams, 2 of those 3, most likely, if not all 3, will stay in front of those LEC teams. So no, I don't think the MIT or Middlebury losses help the LEC whatsoever, because neither of those teams are both going to win out this week and be able to boost their resumes to get ahead of them. Now, argument could be that the LEC teams are going to win more than Middlebury and MIT. Here's the thing, though. There's a huge gap. They might get ahead of Middlebury, but you're not going to get ahead of necessarily MIT. At 22-3, Middlebury's at 17-7, Keene State 18-7, Eastern Connecticut at 19-6. That's your win-loss gap. That's a sizable gap. I don't necessarily see them jumping ahead of MIT. They might go ahead of Middlebury because Middlebury won't play. They won't boost their resume. Their SOS will change. The results versus regionally ranked will adjust depending on who's ranked and all. But they're not going to necessarily get enough data to jump ahead of MIT. So no, I don't think it changes the LEC. I still think the LEC is a win-bid league. There's a very outside chance they're 2-bid, but you're going to have 1, 2, 3, minimum 4 teams sitting at the table in the Northeast before any LEC team gets to the table as an at-large. Minimum 4, possibly 5, max 6. So I just don't see the LEC getting anything out of this deal because of MIT and Middlebury losing. I don't think the data is there to get them up. Maybe they get ahead of Middlebury, and I think that's where Middlebury needs to worry, is that an LEC team could get ahead of them and end up blocking Middlebury. I just don't know if they get ahead of MIT. Granted, MIT losing to a non-regionally ranked team in WPI may not help them, but I just don't see right now MIT dropping behind 1 or 2 LEC teams and falling to 7th, really. I don't see it. Nichols, outside chance they could fall because the committee sees an extra loss and drops them, but they've got an extra win now. So I don't see it. I just don't see the LEC benefiting at all from losses, considering, again, that only one of them is going to, at least one of them is going to have to take a loss, if not both of them take a loss. So back to the Capital comment. I got to double check Capital. Capital men's basketball. They are going to lose. It's clear. Baldwin-Wallace going to knock them off 81-67. What that does, actually, Marietta losing early in the week didn't necessarily pop a bubble, but Capital could. You go into the regional rankings in the Great Lakes, and Capital sitting in the 3 spot, Marietta in the 1 spot. You got to figure they're either going to play blocker now, or they're going to fall enough behind that even Capital might fall out of the rankings. I think Capital's... Here's the problem. Capital's now 19-7. Calling up the calculator to remember what that winning percentage is. 826. Yeah, well, hold on. Making sure I did that right. 730. Yeah, I did it wrong. So they got a 730 winning percentage. I think Capital's going to end up getting in, but they might push some teams down. What it might do, interestingly enough, depending on what happens with Worcester and Wittenberg, is it might boost LaRoche up high enough to get back into the hosting conversation. I'm actually a little surprised they fell to 5. Again, SOS playing a little bit of a role there. John Carroll isn't going to do enough. Well, John Carroll will help boost the SOS a little bit, but it won't help the VRRO for LaRoche. But LaRoche could get back into a conversation about hosting if the committee needs. So that's where Capital probably busted a bubble. Marietta didn't necessarily do that because only one team's coming out of the OAC, obviously with an AQ. Marietta at 1, Capital at 3, Mount Union sitting at 6, and Wilmington sitting at 7. We're kind of that grouping, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm actually going to double check that because the Great Lakes is jam-packed, obviously, with OAC teams. Mount Union ended up finishing on top. Marietta, Capital, Wilmington, right. Okay, I had that right. I'm trying to see. There's really... So really, I mean, Capital now losing guarantees a bubble gone because now Marietta and Capital both need it. I don't think Wilmington definitely wasn't in a spot to steal an AQ or an at-large. Mount Union might be in a spot. It depends on what they do. Now that they can win and move up, should they lose, they might be in a position to take an AQ, but I just don't know if they get ahead of Marietta and Capital. Do they get ahead? I mean, basically what this is it's guaranteeing Wabash and Baldwin-Wallace are on the outside looking in, which is really interesting. Yeah, but Capital losing today and now Marietta losing early in the week is guaranteed a bubble has popped somewhere. The question is who wins it. If Mount Union wins it, then it's less damage. If Mount Union loses, there's an outside chance of another bubble going pop there, if that makes any sense. We'll check out some other scores here in a moment. I'm just double-checking to see if we have any other emails or comments or questions. Brendan, if you're listening, you had a question about Loras. I was looking at the wrong darn regional rankings. I don't know how I called up the second week regional rankings, but I did. Loras is in the 3 spot in the West regions. I still think they need to beat Dubuque, because here's the thing. If they lose to Dubuque, there's a good chance that St. Thomas and St. John's move ahead of them. One of them, let's say for argument's sake, stays ahead of them because of an at-large. One of them goes in as an AQ. And I think that you enter the opportunity for Pomona-Pitzer to get ahead of them too. I think Loras needs to beat Dubuque. If they lose to Dubuque, I think it hurts them. I think I will stand by that, even though I was looking at the wrong data nonetheless. Going to quickly hit some updates here. Get some score updates around the country and double-check if anything else has happened that we need to keep an eye on. Scranton in women's basketball got past Moravian rather easily, 84-54. DeSales got by Kings, 71-56, so no bubbles being popped there. Looking through the rest, Christopher Newport got past Mary Washington in women's basketball, so that will keep things, intact. Southern Virginia got past Salisbury, bringing the Seagulls season to an end in women's basketball. Marymount got past Immaculata. They will not get the Pool B. St. Thomas is going to have that wrapped up and done and dusted, but Marymount stays in the at-large conversation at the very least with that win. Babson women losing. I don't think that's going to really shake up anything off the top of my head. Babson sitting in the 7th spot in the Northeast region. Mass Dartmouth's behind them. I suspect Babson will now fall behind Mass Dartmouth. That might allow Mass Dartmouth to maybe get an at-large opportunity, but I think Mass Dartmouth's got to win that conference too. I don't think the LEC is a multiple bid league this year in men's or women's basketball in any way, shape, or form. By the way, my mother's watching. Hi, Mom. She didn't realize the message was going to come right to me. Pressure nonetheless. Appreciate it. By the way, so the other question that came up on the men's side was the Central, and I misspoke about Wheaton, and I got to go back to that Central region. So Wheaton is still in the 3-hole. No, I'm going to stick with what I was saying, North Central in the 4-hole. You just can't – what I had La Crosse higher. That was the second week rankings. You just can't let La Crosse get into that conversation. Again, if Wheaton loses, they're now 19-7. I can't get my calculator to work. I think Wheaton's probably okay to get in. If they lose, I think it's dangerous. Well, they'd really be 18-8, wouldn't they? 692 winning percentage. The real challenge is Mike Schauer is on the national committee. It would remove him from the national committee while they're discussing him. That would be a challenge, to say the least. That would be unfortunate. I think Wheaton gets in. North Central, I think, has got to win that, certainly. You just don't want La Crosse to get into the conversation, plain and simple. If La Crosse splits them or gets ahead of them, there's problems. Here's the thing. What I'm noticing here is that clearly other data is coming into play here, and we got to see how that other data would change things up. Stevens Point's got a 6-point lead on Oshkosh at the midway point. Randolph-Macon defeated Randolph rather easily. Of course, Randolph-Macon defeating the formerly known as Randolph-Macon Women's College, 79-42. So the top dog in the ODAC stays alive, which is good. St. Thomas Augsburg just getting underway here right now. That's a game you should keep an eye on. Augsburg looking for the upset. We mentioned the upset already at WPI over MIT. That's going to pop a bubble. St. John's has an easy lead right now on Bethel. Bethel only scored 18 points in the first half. And we mentioned Capital losing. Nichols came back to win that one against Western New England. That's a big win. Checking to see if there's any other games that finished that will affect the rankings. Well, W&L lost to Virginia Wesleyan 69-77. W&L, while had an outside chance of, well, they were fourth on the men's side, and they now take a loss. I think W&L just played themselves out of the tournament, which is unfortunate. They needed that win. They needed to bolster their resume a little bit more, and I think they've just lost the chance at an at-large bid because the rest of the ODAC will improve around them, especially in the regional rankings. Mary Hardin-Baylor got a good win there, but Mary Hardin-Baylor's got to win out in the ASC. The ASC on the men's side is not as strong as on the women's side, and I don't think the men have any chance of any more than one team coming out of there as of now. You look at those regional rankings in the South again, and the highest-ranked team is Mary Hardin-Baylor at 8. Just tells you just where those Texas teams rank right now, which is polar opposite of what we've seen on the women's side. Guilford got past Emory and Henry, so there's another example of another team, Emory and Henry, who was sitting in those South regional rankings. Actually, they weren't. I apologize. I'm confusing them with the women, so that's really not relevant. Apologize for all of you just kind of hurt your neck doing a whip turn maybe on something I said. Let's see. What other results pop up here that would show that a significant game would affect things? I don't see anything huge. York got past Mary Washington. That's good for the Mid-Atlantic. Drew got past Scranton. That's going to end Scranton's chances at an at-large, I think. Scranton on the men's side in the Mid-Atlantic was sitting in, or they weren't even ranked this week. Drew had gotten ahead of them. Drew has now beaten them 3 times. I see no reason that Scranton can get in. They had a 508 SOS at the beginning of the week, or at the time the data was done for the regional rankings. That will slightly go up, but not by much by playing Drew. And now they pick up a 6 loss, and they're not even ranked now. Scranton out of the tournament. The Landmark will have one team. It looks like it will be Drew. Unless, and by the way, it's going to have to be the AQ, and Drew at least wins that game. Emerson brings Springfield's season to a halt. Talk about a tough season for Springfield. By the way, since I bring up Springfield, tip of the hat to their athletics department. Sent some nice mementos to us as a thank you. I appreciate it. We will try and maybe don one of those mementos at some point. Springfield men's basketball had a lot of high expectations from a lot of us. Finished the season 11-15. Just not what Charlie Brock dialed up, I'm sure. One of the best players in the country will be back, though. Look forward to seeing how they do. I'm just making sure there isn't anything else. Oh, we do have some emails. Yay! Rick Minton actually says W&L lost by 8, just straightening things out. Always good to hear you. Yeah. Did I say otherwise? Oh, it says you said they won. I apologize, Rick. You're right. I flipped the score. They beat Virginia Wesleyan. So W&L stays alive. Wow. Got that one backwards. W&L stays alive. That's good. They needed that win. That might give the ODAC an outside chance at a third team. And I say that with, let's just say, let's just go on a crazy here. Randolph-Macon, let's say Guilford ends up getting the championship game, not W&L. There's an outside chance W&L's in a spot now. They're now 19-7, make it 19-8. They might actually get a third team from the ODAC in. That's an interesting scenario there. That's a good win for W&L. Sorry about that, Rick. Appreciate the correction. We make those mistakes every once in a while trying to do this show solo. Yeah, the top seed in the NUMAC, as we mentioned, Babson women losing. I think that might hurt their chances of an at-large. Trying to go through the rest of this. I'm more trying to figure out how I flip the scores. Mount Union brings John Carroll's season to an end. We kind of hinted at that earlier. John Carroll finishes 13-14, though they were playing well late with wins over Wilmington and Marietta at the end of the season, but lose to Mount Union. And I think John Carroll will be tough to play next year. Maybe a retooling season this year. But Mount Union, securing a maybe, like I said, that's improving their resume, getting them in better shape. But all of what I'm saying tonight could change with games later tonight, could change with games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And when we get here Sunday, it's going to be crazy. SUNYAC get one team in or two this year. I'm on the thought, Tim, that SUNYAC only gets one in. Plattsburgh's in the best shape. I think Oswego's got to win and Plattsburgh gets an at-large. I'm just not that confident in it because the numbers out of the East are not that good. Apparently Apparently the rankings from the NCAA are not working. Ah, great. I'm going to go into our favorite man's numbers. Let's see what he's got. He's got Plattsburgh with a 527 SOS, a 540 non-conference SOS, 6-5 versus regionally ranked opponents. Yeah, I think Plattsburgh's got a decent chance. Oswego 6-4 versus regionally ranked opponents with a 525. I'm just worried the East is going to be looked upon as not as strong. Yes, I think there's a chance at 2, not at large. If both of them are at large, I think there's a problem because that adds losses that makes them both minimum 20-6 or 21-6. But that's as far, by the way, as the East goes. There's an outside chance, Tim. There's an outside chance. The problem is the more bubbles get burst by better teams, the less likelihood. Will you make an NCAA Finals prediction or Final Four guess after Selection Monday? Probably not. I am on the broadcast crew for that Final Four, and I don't want anybody thinking I've got some point of view in mind that dictates how I'm going to call a game, even though it's completely irrelevant. So I probably won't make a Final Four prediction. However, what I may do on Thursday's show is I might have a bunch of others submit their Final Four predictions and run those. I just got a text. NCAA site taken down tonight at 9 o'clock for maintenance before the weekend. So that's why we can't see those numbers, except for our friend who's got them, crunching them on his end. His are pretty accurate. Not got a lot more left in us here, boys, but if you got more questions, send them our way. We'll try and answer them as soon as we can. Looking around to see if we've got some more. Yeah, as they said, the inaugural season of the program, the 7th-seeded St. Joseph's of Connecticut are headed to the GNAC Championships on Saturday under head coach Jim Calhoun and Glenn Miller. USJ top 6 seed St. John's. St. Joseph's of Maine, 91-86 on the road after upsetting number 2 Suffolk on Tuesday. So, yeah, congratulations to them. And looks like they'll play Albertus Magnus. Albertus Magnus defeated Emmanuel 104-93. Yep, they'll host that title game. So St. Joseph's will come home from Maine, get ready to take on Albertus Magnus down in Connecticut. That'll be a short drive for them. Another score, Elizabethtown defeated Catholic in women's basketball. Not that that really changes up too much of anything, to say the least. Last call for questions. If you got them, send them our way. We'll do a programming update here momentarily, and we'll just double-check a couple more scores to make sure we see how things are going. So programming update Sunday, we'll be back on the air at 6 o'clock Eastern. We will talk to some teams that have either punched their tickets or are at large with bubble hopes. Those will be intermixed throughout the show. We'll also, something new, we'll talk to each committee chair briefly in a pre-taped interview before their weekends get crazy, but we'll run them on Sunday to remind everybody of how this all works. Also, what they've been dealing with this season in terms of rankings, especially on the men's side. Remember, getting rid of that SOS win-loss metric, which I actually kind of support. Talking to them about that transition and not trying to go too deep because we don't need to go in the weeds. If you really want to go in the weeds on that, go back to our marathon show. But also, what are they expecting to try and pull off or do or execute or whatever with the bracket? What are they trying to do with the bracket? What are they trying to do when it comes to hosting and all that jazz? Remember, women have priority the first weekend. So it's an odd-numbered year. Women, so if there's two teams, say Amherst, Oshkosh, or two off the top of my head, St. Thomas possibly, there's some others. Women, if they want to host that weekend, then the men have to find another place to send that pod. It does not mean necessarily that they will immediately go to the next team that's got the highest ranking and have them host. It's really about where can they move that pod, because you don't want necessarily the next highest team. It could do more damage to the bracket, to be honest. It's easier if they can to move the pod and maybe move one team just as a result of that, still treating that top ranked team as a top ranked team. But it's also complicated depending on where all that takes place. in the second weekend, the men will then have priority. So if the St. Thomases, the Amherst, the Oshkoshes of the world continue to move on and they're both in a hosting opportunity again, now the men would have it the second weekend. That's in odd-numbered years. So there you go. I hope that answered that question. We'll be on the air at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Then a reminder, 12:30 Eastern Time. On Monday, the men's bracket will be announced. I'll be involved with that. Looking forward to it. I think this is the 4th or 5th year, to be honest. Lost track. Then at 2:30 Eastern Time on Monday, the women's brackets will be announced. You can get all that information at d3hoops.com. And then on Monday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, we will be back in the chair to break down the brackets and talk to the committee chairs and hopefully some other coaches who have popped into the rankings. And again, not to disappoint any of you out there, but I probably will not be making a Final Four prediction on the men's side. I might make one on the women's side. I'm not involved in the broadcast on that side, but I may do it there. Speaking of Final Four, City of Salem, City of Fort Wayne, want to thank them for coming on board and being sponsors here, advertisers with us. Don't forget you can get tickets for all of those Final Four locations, both at Roanoke College for the women in Salem, Virginia, and, of course, at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne on the men's side. In fact, you can get your tickets at muspartans.com/NCAA, muspartans.com/NCAA to get your tickets on the men's side. We'll double-check the women's side, but I think you can go to Roanoke College Athletics to get your ticket information there. You can also get your ticket information on NCAA.com. They have that information there. We will have that information ourselves on the website. So just double-checking. Another game to keep an eye on tonight on the men's side. Whitman's taking on Puget Sound. That's one game. But Whitworth taking on Linfield. Whitworth's got to win that game, folks. They have got to get to the title game, especially against Whitman. That game's coming up at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You can watch it. I would suggest you do so. Whitworth has got to beat Linfield. I'm not that convinced they can the way they've been playing of late. And this is a team I thought was one of the better teams I had seen in a number of years. So that might tell you a lot. In the WIAC, would La Crosse and Stevens Point play if the... Oh, I already saw that one. I apologize. Would La Crosse and Stevens Point if they play in the championship? And again, I don't think so. I think La Crosse might have a good chance, but Stevens Point needs to win to get in. Plain and simple. Double-checking any other... By the way, Stevens Point does lead Oshkosh 37-27 with 15:50 remaining in that game. Keep an eye on that. Oshkosh is in. I'm not worried about that, but Stevens Point's trying to bolster that resume to get into the tournament. St. John's all over Bethel, 55-26. That game is done and dusted, and it's not even over. 11:20 left in that one, and St. John's is going to move on easily. Really quick check of the women's scores. Make sure there's nothing jumping out at us. Any other finals that we may have missed? I don't really see anything else. Women has really been a bit of chalk, though tonight on the men's side it has not. We already had a couple of upsets. MIT losing, Capital losing, Nichols nearly losing. Those games certainly not going their way. Roanoke's got a lead on Lynchburg right now. There's another one that's late in the first half, almost halftime. It's an 8-point lead for Roanoke. Both teams trying to get into the tournament. Lynchburg's in a better spot, but Lynchburg, again, has to win like these other teams we've talked about. Cannot get stalled out in the quarterfinals of the ODAC tournament in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's all. I don't see any other real quick scores that jump out at me. Gordon won, though they need to win to get in as well to keep their hopes alive. They're not going to get in that large bid either. And that will wrap up our show here tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. You can tune in on Sunday starting at 6 o'clock, as we mentioned. And we will do our mock selection. Still putting our team together, but Bob Quillman and Ryan Scott will be part of the team on the men's side. I've got a wrinkle I might try and throw a third name into that. On the women's side, we'll have James Wagner and BJ Spiegelmeyer back. Also, hopefully, Gordon Mann as well, working on some tech sides to get Gordon involved to make our selections on the women's side. And, of course, then Pat Coleman and others will bracket that all up after the fact and post that stuff on d3hoops.com on Sunday. And, yeah, there you go. So big show on 6 o'clock Sunday. We hope you tune in. Tell your friends to tune in as well. Follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. You can communicate with us also using the hashtag Hoopsville or follow us. You can also follow us on Instagram at D3Hoopsville as well, though we mainly promote the show there. Of course, Facebook.com/Hoopsville is where you can follow us there. And, of course, our website is D3Hoopsville.com, part of the D3 Hoops family. I want to thank our advertisers and sponsors, of course, Blue Frame Technology for being our hotline sponsor. Again, go to blueframetech.com if you want more information on the on Blue Frame Technology's both production truck software and, of course, their streaming opportunities. City of Salem and the City of Fort Wayne for their support of the show, but also the fact that they're the Final Four hosts, folks. So make sure you head to those locations to buy your tickets. Why not, right? The Final Four should be terrific in both cities, especially the All-Star games and whatnot. We'll be there on the men's side. Myself, Pat Coleman, I think Ryan Scott. On the women's side, Gordon Mann, at least. I think there's maybe another name or two we'll throw in there at some point down the road. Of course, I want to thank National Association of Basketball Coaches and the Women's Basketball Coaches Association as well. We'll have another center court segment next week. I got some ideas, believe it or not. Even with the NCAA tournament continuing, got some ideas to continue that. And then, of course, I want to thank D3Hoops.com for their support as well. That'll do it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I want to thank our guests who appeared on the show. Of course, they include Cameron Hill at Trinity, Kristen Carrott at Cedar Crest, and Jeff Brown at Middlebury. And I want to thank the sports information directors, Justin at Trinity, Leroy at Cedar Crest, and Dane, especially at Middlebury, for their help in putting this show together and getting our guests on the air. Also want to thank Don Stoner at Augsburg for helping out with the Augsburg sound with Booker Copeland earlier in the show. Appreciate his effort, and WCCO for allowing us to run their story as well. There you did. Buttoned it up. We're done and dusted. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. If you want to talk about Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. We'll be back on the air Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday. Good night.